Guys, welcome to Fly with Gunner. My name's Gunner Jones, flight instructor, flight school owner here in the beautiful state of Arkansas. And today I'm going to be going over these 5 easy steps to follow to get your private pilot license cheap, fast, and easy. Let's first talk about some requirements that are going to have to be met. So age is a big one here. Can you be 13, 14 years old and start flight training? Well, legally, yes, but it's not the smartest thing to do because you're going to waste a lot of time and money. Now, if you have the time and money to spend on this, that's great to get in it as early as possible and start getting that foundation built. But you're not going to be able to solo until you're 16 years of age. Now, solo is one of the requirements that you're going to have to meet in flight training. So after you solo, you still have to be 17 years of age to actually get your private pilot license. So I would recommend waiting till you're at least 15 to start flight training. But this age issue is not going to be a factor for you. You know you're over 16, 17 years old and you're ready to start flight training. Well, your very first step number 1, that is going to be a discovery flight. Now, not everybody is going to live in a big city, a big town, but I guarantee you're going to be able to find multiple flight schools within an hour drive of you, maybe even closer. So all this is going to take is you Googling flight school near me, getting a phone number, calling them, and setting up what's called a discovery flight. Now, discovery flight is usually a flat rate. It's 2022, I would say now. They are going between $100 and $200. It's going to be somewhere in between, just a flat rate, and that's going to allow you to go up for 30 minutes to an hour with an instructor. He's going to show you the very basics of flying and make sure that this is something that you really want to spend the money on and go through with. You've got your discovery flight out the way and you loved it so much that you want to keep going. Now here is the beginning of the rest of the steps that most flight instructors are not going to be honest with you about, so that's why I'm here today. So the second step in this process is going to be getting a medical examination. Now this has to be done through an AME, which is an aviation medical examiner. You're going to need what's called a 3rd class medical. There's 1st class, 2nd class, 3rd class. For a 3rd class medical, that's all you're going to need as a private pilot. It's very easy to get. But I always recommend getting this because if you do have any unforeseen medical issues that's going to prevent you from getting a medical, well, I would much rather you know that before you ever even start flight training than getting $5,000 in and then, hey, I can't get my medical. So what now? Well, I guess you spent all that money for nothing. So step number 2 is going to be go get your medical. And once again, you can text a flight instructor about this. You can call a flight school and ask them what medical examiner they use, or you can just get on Google and Google AME near me, Aviation Medical Examiner. And it's going to be easy as that. Get an appointment set up and get that medical out of the way first and foremost. And 3rd class, if you're under 40, this is going to be good for 60 calendar months, 5 years. If you're over 40, it's going to be good for 24 calendar months, 2 years. So plenty of time after you get it to complete your training. Step number 3 to becoming a private pilot. So you're not going to want to hear this, but your training needs to stop right here after you get your medical, because now you need to study for the FAA written test. Now this is a 100-question test that you're going to have to be prepared to take. You're going to have to make at least a 70 on it. It's a fairly simple test if you study for it and if you study for it the right way. So how do you go about studying for that? Man, you need a load of books. But instead of buying all these books one by one and trying to figure out all the books you need, I'm going to put a link below to what's called the Gleim Private Pilot Kit. Now this could come with all the books you need. To come with a logbook to log your flight training after you pass your test and you start your actual training. It's going to come with all the tools you need for flight training. So I will put a link down below, and that is the very next step to save time and money, is go ahead and start studying for this written test. So in this Gleim Private Pilot Kit, it is also going to come with an online access code. Now they have a website that will walk you through step by step how to study these books, what to study, in what order. They make it very simple, very easy, and this is going to help you out tremendously. I mean, you really don't understand how much this helps you out until you start your flight training after you've already done this. So a lot of people go into their flight training, they just want to get out there and fly. So they do no studying, they just want to go fly the plane, right? Because that's all you need to know is how to fly the plane. Well, not so much. So there's a lot of information to learn. So the bottom line, the airplane is a terrible classroom. It's fast moving. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of avionics. It's sensory overload. And they say for every hour you fly, you need to be studying 3. So if you go ahead and get this written test knocked out before you ever even start your training, man, are you going to get so much more out of those lessons. And I can guarantee you it's going to cut off an additional 15-20 hours of flight time for what it would have taken you if you didn't study beforehand. So get this written knocked out, get this private pilot kit ordered, and dive into the books. Take 2 months off before you ever even start your next lesson and get this written knocked out, and man, it's going to help you so much in the long run. I wish somebody would have told me this before I started. So you took 2 months off, you grinded it out, you got through your written, you know all this information now, you're going to get so much more out of your lesson. So now what's the next step? Well, obviously it's booking that first flight lesson back from your discovery flight. And what I'm going to say in step number 4 is to take training seriously and fly consistently. Now to do this, you're going to have to make sure you have the time and money. So it's best not to fly after a long day of work. So, you know, you're going to have to sacrifice your off days for a year and fly when you're feeling good. I mean, you don't want to have a long day of work and then go get in the plane and be frustrated, and you're just not going to get much out of the lesson. So something to think about is sitting down, making sure you have the money to do this and the time, and get with your flight instructor and make sure y'all are on the same schedule, and try to set it up where you are flying minimum once every other week. The best thing for you is going to be flying once a week, because just like anything else, you take a couple weeks off and you get back in the cockpit and man, everything's just sensory overload again. You know, you're taking the first 30 minutes to just get back in the groove of things. So the more consistent you can be with flight training, the faster all this is going to go. You have figured out that, man, you've got Saturdays. Every Saturday you can fly. That's great. So you've got the time. But now, do you have the money? So you've already spent $100 on a discovery flight, driving to and from the airport. You spend another $100 on your medical. You've spent another $150 getting the books for your written exam. You've spent another $150 actually taking the written exam. So man, you're already out $600-700 right off the bat. You haven't even started your training. So training in 2022, of course, the economy isn't doing the best right now, and flight training is a little more expensive. Now, for our flight school right now, we are charging $184 an hour for the plane. Instruction fee is $50. So I'm seeing people spend roughly after taxes about $240 an hour doing their flight training. So the FAA minimum is 40 hours, and you know, $250 an hour roughly, 40 hours. You can do the math. It is pricey. So make sure that you have the money to spend. And of course, you can fly once a month, but man, that is really doing yourself a disservice. I mean, it is going to take you so long to get there. And I'm just being honest with you, because most flight instructors won't. If you don't have the money to flight train, I mean, don't waste the money. There's just really no point unless you have the money to fly consistently. That's just bottom line of flight training. So make sure you have the money and the time figured out, and that's really all you can do. All right, guys. So step number 5 of getting your private pilot license, quick and easy. So find a flight instructor that is actually going to stick through it with you. You're hiring them and you're paying them good money, so you should almost sit down and interview them. I mean, make sure that 3 months into your training, they're not going to jump up and go find a new job, or they're not 100 hours away from going to the airlines. Make sure that they're going to stick through this whole process with you. Now, a good flight instructor is going to be 100% honest with you, tell you his goals, how long he's at that flight school training students for, and just make sure it's somebody that's going to stick it through to the end with you, because you don't want to get halfway through your training and your flight instructor say, hey man, I'm going to the airlines next week, so good luck finding a new flight instructor, or here's old Billy, good luck with Billy. Because then, man, you're going to spend a lot of time and money getting integrated with that new flight instructor, because he doesn't know anything about you. He can't take word from your previous flight instructor that you're this far in your training. No, he's going to have to go find that out all on his own, and that's going to be through flying. And each minute you're in the plane, you are racking up dollars. So the 5th step, find a flight instructor that's going to work with you and stick it through. If you follow these 5 steps, I can guarantee you're going to get through flight training in half the time than you would just going about it on your own.